What's going on? It's Justeeni here. We're back with an updated Waterworld tier list to cover how things have changed since the somewhat recent balance change in Polytopia. I know that literally nobody has been asking for this, but I'm here to provide anyway because Waterworld funny, haha. Subscribe if you like Waterworld. But yeah, before we get right into things, the way that this is working, it's going to be covering normal Waterworld. And the main thing that we're looking at is, of course, how good these tribes are at getting in the water and their overall effectiveness at like water combat, exploration, and building an economy, all that stuff, but for Waterworld. Some things that will also be considered, but not nearly as much, are tribes' abilities to deal with landlocked spawns, how easily they can get like giants and stuff, how well they can work with multi-city spawns, but the landlocked and multi-city spawns aren't quite as common with Waterworld, so those won't be emphasized quite as much. Now onto the tier list. Starting in F tier, a bit of a change from last time, Venger. Sadly, Venger has gotten nerfed quite a bit with the recent balance patch, making them, in my opinion, the worst tribe in the game for Waterworld. They're horrible at getting giants. They have the slowest economy in the entire game. They can't get on the water quickly. The only thing that they really have going for them are two things. They can get a pretty easy level 3 city with a mine, forge, and port, and their starting sword can give them a bit of an advantage in the water with exploration and occasionally combat as well. But other than those two factors, Venger's really awful. Don't use them unless you're trying to be a little silly goober. Next in F tier, we're seeing a familiar friend, Illyrian, still hanging around F tier. Sadly, they've gotten nothing but nerfs. With Polytars now being more expensive, they suffer similar issues to Venger. Horribly slow economy, they take forever to get on the water, and unlike Venger, they can't even get an easy level 3. Illyrian does have some things to make up for that, sanctuaries being a way of building the economy to actually get a pretty decent economy, despite their very, very slow start. And Polytars, while expensive, can still be useful to get around if you're pop capped in your capital, which is very common. And the ability to see ruins can help in a non-zero amount of cases, and I think those do add up to make Illyrian just a little bit better than Venger, but not quite enough to actually make Illyrian graduate from F tier. Now, starting off in D tier, we have Omaji. They have 6 starting stars instead of 5, but unfortunately that starting star does pretty much nothing for them. They are able to upgrade their capital on turn 2, unlike the tribes below, so they do have that advantage being a turn faster into the water. They also can consistently upgrade with organization because they start with 2 guaranteed fruit, but those advantages don't really add up to too much. It's enough to put them in D tier, but it doesn't really get them any further, so sadly, Omaji is going to be alone in this tier. Now on to C tier. Now we see Chinchi. Chinchi suffers some similar issues to Omaji, not being able to upgrade their capital consistently until turn 2. They start with 7 stars, but because they don't have guaranteed fish, animals, or fruit, they have to rely on their mines instead. However, as some upsides compared to Omaji, they can get a very easy level 3, much like Venger, because Chinchi has 2 guaranteed mines, and they can get a pretty easy level 4 as well if they go for Smithery. This means that in some situations they can actually get a giant relatively quickly, which can help. Now, their slow economy does still hold them back, and makes them not nearly as desirable as the tribes further up on the tier list. Next in C tier, we have Hoodrick, one of the other tribes that have 7 stars now. They're able to upgrade on turn 1, which is a pretty nice advantage compared to the other tribes we've seen so far. And they can get on the water a lot faster because of that, being able to get on the water on turn 4 and get sailing on turn 6, as opposed to the other tribes who get sailing on turn 7 or even 8. That one extra turn is a pretty big deal for gathering extra ruins or starfish or whatnot. But because Hoodrick starts with animals instead of fruit, it does put them at a bit of a disadvantage compared to some other tribes we'll see. Now, topping off C tier, we have Yedek. I consider them to be just a little bit better than Hodrik, mainly due to the fact that they start with fruit, as opposed to animals. They both develop at the same speed, upgrading their capital on turn 1, getting on the water at the same time, and getting sailing at the same time. But because Yedek starts with the fruit and goes for organization, typically to level up their capital, it does mean that once you've gotten those ruins and starfish in the water, you have a slightly easier time going for defenders, and that can make the difference in a few situations. Overall, while the tribes in C tier are very close in viability, I do think that Yedek is just a little stronger than the other ones. Now, starting off B tier, this is where the tribes start to get pretty good, and I had a really hard time figuring out which tribes really belonged here and how they should be ordered. I think there's a lot of subjectivity here. At the bottom of B tier, I have Quetzali. Quetzali, much like Yedek and Hodrik, upgrades on turn 1. Like Yedek, they have 2 guaranteed fruit, and just a good resource spread overall, which can even help getting level 3s in some cases. Now, the advantage that Quetzali has over Yedek and Hodrik that's really significant, puts them a tier higher, is the fact that they start with strategy, a very, very important tech for Waterworld. This puts them easily head and shoulders above them, not needing to buy strategy, and the fact that they start with defenders gives them a huge advantage early on in the water. Next in B tier, we have Imo, who I consider to be slightly better than Quetzali. Imo starts with 2 less starting stars, but that's quickly nullified by the fact that they start with Philosophy, which is going to discount their tech prices. They upgrade a turn later, and get in the water a turn later, but they actually get sailing at the same time as Quetzali, allowing them to pretty much have the same rate of expansion, so they don't really miss out on anything there. And due to navigation being cheaper, and all your techs being cheaper, it allows you to get quite a nice advantage once you've gotten those starfish and ocean ruins. So, Imo doesn't have defenders, but they can get them pretty easily, and you can even go for meditation to get a giant. With Imo, I don't recommend getting turn 0 meditation. I would recommend getting it on turn 3 if you want to go for it, only after you've upgraded your capital. And it's really only worth going for if you know that you can get the giant. But those options that Imo has, I think gives them a bit of an edge over Quetzali. Philosophy is just a really useful tech, Waterworld, and definitely makes up for their reduced starting stars. Next on the tier list, the most unusual Waterworld tribe we've seen yet is Saimanti, the only tribe so far, other than Venger, that has actually fallen down in tiers. Previously, a pretty scary tribe in Waterworld, but with Boost no longer existing, Reichi are far less scary, and the fact that Reichi have reduced HP means they don't trade nearly as well in the scouts as they did before. Combine that with the slower economy, and it's pretty apparent that they are a worse tribe. But not everything is doom and gloom for Saimanti, because they do have access to living islands, which in some niche situations can be quite strong, and they have one advantage that I think really prevents them from being in C tier, and it's the fact that unlike any of these tribes we've seen on the tier list, Saimanti can actually work with landlocked spawns pretty well, better than any other tribe because of the fact that they have access to Faichi. Faichi can allow you to explore the water even if you're totally landlocked, allowing you to pick up other cities, while other landlocked tribes may struggle to do anything for 10 turns or so. That advantage is definitely a big consideration, and it's one of the main things that keeps Saimanti in B tier overall. Next in B tier, we get our first turn 0 tribe, Barter. Barter, the worst of the turn 0s, but a turn 0 nonetheless. They can develop faster than any of the other tribes leveling up on turn 0. They can get on the water on turn 3 and get sailing on turn 5. Faster than any of the other tribes by a good margin. Now with Barter, they start with animals, which is the least desirable thing to start with on Waterworld. Hunting is just not a very useful tech. They'll have to go into organization before they can pick up strategy, kind of like the disadvantage that Hodrik has compared to Yedek. But because they are a turn 0 tribe, they are a good deal faster, and that does matter a lot more than those disadvantages. Next on the tier list, Imperious. Pretty straightforward reasoning with this one. It's much like how Yadek is a little better than Hoodrick. Imperious is just a little better than Barter for pretty much the same reason. Both are turn 0 tribes, both can get sailing very early, and they can explore the water very quickly. But Imperious has that slight edge. Starting with organization, they can get strategy just a little bit earlier. And after both tribes have navigation, Imperious has that slight edge because they can get defenders a little more easily than Barter. And that ultimately gives Imperious a slight advantage. Still in the same tier, but only a little bit better. Now at the top of B tier, this might surprise some people, but Zabasi. So why is Zabasi better than Imperious? Zabasi farms are more expensive, but because you start with 2 of them, you have a very easy time getting a level 3 city. And because unlike a tribe like Chinchi, your development isn't actually slowed by the farms at all. You still get on the water at the same time, you still get sailing at the same time, so once you get to that point, it's kind of all upside. That extra farm gets you the easy level 3, construction could potentially get you level 4 or a giant, though that's a little trickier to do with Zabasi compared to tribes like Chinchi. But being able to get that level 3 does help your economy out just that little bit, and since Waterworld games can take a lot of turns, it will add up and give Zabasi a bit of an advantage. Now you can't access strategy as easily as Imperious, but I think the upsides that Zabasi does have makes up for it just a little bit. Now in A tier, we start to get to the really good tribes. These are the kind of tribes you can actually expect to win with pretty consistently in Waterworld, and we're starting with Luxador, who's gotten a pretty nice glow up. And yeah, they're a very strong tribe. They have a few things going for them. So their upgraded capital means they can get giants more easily than any of the other tribes we've talked about by like a huge margin. Luxador gets giants way more easily than any other tribe. They can even double giants more easily than any other tribe. They get on the water at the same time as a turn 0 tribe and get sailing at the same time as well, so they are quick to the water too. And as if that wasn't enough, they also start with 2 water tiles, meaning they're pretty much immune to being landlocked, which is a huge deal, as those spawns can be pretty crippling for most other tribes. All these advantages put Luxador easily above the other tribes that we've talked about so far, making them a very strong pick on Waterworld. Now, slightly above Luxador is going to be Kiku. I had a really hard time deciding if Kiku was actually better than Luxador, and I think it really could go either way, but in my opinion, being able to get onto the water just 1 turn sooner is a very big deal that cannot be understated. And much like Luxador, Kiku also has 2 guaranteed water tiles, which means they're also practically immune to being landlocked. They both have that advantage. Really, the main things that contrast Kiku and Luxador is the fact that Kiku can't get early giants, but they're on the water a turn sooner, allowing them to get navigation and those ocean ruins, and just expand in general just a little bit faster, which I think gives them the edge overall. Now in S tier, this is where we see the truly overpowered Waterworld tribes. If you want to be winning consistently on Waterworld, these tribes will not fail you. Starting off in S tier, we have Polaris. This tribe is just a menace on so many levels. It does have a slower economy than the other tribes that we've talked about in A and B tier, but to make up for it, they have the fastest exploration in the game, bar none. They can explore new territory as early as turn 1. They have a Mooney, and they can just upgrade on turn 2, then start getting more Moonies, getting sleds, and with the recent balance patches, they're able to work with the landlocked spawns even better, which just makes them that much more consistent. Sleds, despite the slight nerf that they've gotten, they're still very, very strong on Waterworld, and since Moonies are even better on Waterworld than they previously were, it's without a question, Polaris is still a very, very dangerous tribe. They're a force to be reckoned with for sure. And as if that wasn't enough, they have even more. The fact that they can use their Ice Bank on Waterworld, because they don't rely on using it with like sawmills or windmills or whatnot, they just care about ice being on the board. That gives them yet another advantage to work with. But wait, there's even more. They also have Gami, very strong super unit, and this is really, really useful. It's the best super unit for Waterworld by a good margin, and Polaris can use it very effectively. All those give Polaris a pretty big advantage over the rest of the tribes, except for one. At the top of S tier, Aquarion. Aquarion doesn't explore as fast as Polaris, only getting in the deep water on turn 4. Their economy is about the same, and their units aren't as strong, but Aquarion has one extremely game-breaking factor to make up for that, and it's the fact that their ocean ruins turn into cities. Waterworld has almost no cities usually. Because Aquarion can get cities from ruins, it's a huge deal. Normally when fighting other top tiers, Aquarion won't actually be able to get that many ruins, but they don't need very many. Just 2 ruins oftentimes can be outright decisive in many cases, making Aquarion very strong on Waterworld. Their crab is also quite good, jellyfish are threatening as well, and even sharks can be useful occasionally to deal with Polaris, being able to effectively counter Gamis that way. If you can get bubbles, your riders can also become very dangerous that way as well. So overall, the fact that you can pretty much guarantee yourself a city advantage and you have very cheap, cost-effective units really makes Aquarion the best Waterworld tribe. Let me know if you guys disagree with this tier list. You're probably wrong, but I do think there is some subjectivity within the tiers. Like anything in C tier, you could really arrange it however you want. Same with B tier, A tier, S tier, and even F tier. The tribes within those tiers are quite tightly packed, unlike the last time where I did this Waterworld tier list, where there was a pretty clear difference in power level. There's definitely a lot more viable options on Waterworld, which I think is pretty interesting. Let me know if you guys want to see some more Waterworld gaming. I'd be very happy to provide. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed. Like and sub, and have a good one.